Sometimes good people just get tired of caring.
But persistence and enduring love is how the good is accomplished.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here is your host and moderator.
Welcome, viewers. Thank you for joining us today for what I'm sure is going to be a fascinating program. My name is Andrea Luxton. I am the president of Andrews University in Michigan, and I'm today's moderator. And I would now like you to meet our panel for the day.
Hi, I'm Tony Matthews, and I'm the Senior Strategist for Missional Ministries for a network of churches in the state of Texas, and I'm a Baptist minister.
Hi, my name is Dan Levin. I serve as Senior Rabbi at Temple Bethel in Boca Raton, Florida.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I serve as the minister of First Christian Church in Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Carl Trovall. I'm professor of ethics and history at Concordia University, Texas in Austin.
Thank you, panelists, also for joining us. And now to today's intriguing question and topic. About 100 days into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Olena Zelensky, wife of Ukraine's embattled President Volodymyr Zelensky, pleaded, "Don't get used to our pain." Getting used to or comfortable with someone else's pain. The notion stops most religious people in our tracks because we come from traditions built around values of love and peace and caring. Could we really be guilty of that? Most of us would at least hope we would not. Yet many military strategists think that Vladimir Putin is counting on that very thing, weakening Western resolve to assist Ukraine by blaming rising costs associated with the war, not on Putin, but on their own leaders, and tiring of dealing with more refugees by just getting distracted to other issues. Perhaps the same can be said of the way we respond to mass shootings. First horror, then thoughts and prayers, then mutual blaming, and then gradually, as time goes by, other matters impose themselves on us, and we don't end up doing anything at all. Atrocity fatigue, some have called it. That's a lot like our COVID fatigue, which can be said to have caused several new strains of the virus to evolve and caused us hardly to take note at all when we in the US passed the 1 million death mark. Do we really just lose focus and let ourselves get distracted? Or is something deeper going on? At a certain point, do we just learn not to care? With modern slavery and oppression, racism, misogyny, caged immigrant children, drugs, mental health, education issues, homelessness, crime, and on, perhaps our ability to care simply gets stretched so thin that a Putin or a gun lobby or a disease can simply win by playing the long game. So some questions for our panelists. Do we really get used to other people's pain? What is really going on when we move from concern to concern to concern without solution? And is there any scriptural advice for this matter? Let's start by returning to our panelists who began our conversation today.
Thank you. I'm reminded at the very beginning of this conversation of a conversation that I was a part of when I was going to Vanderbilt Divinity School many years ago. One of the participants in the conversation was a fellow who was working tirelessly for the abolition of the death penalty in the state of Tennessee. And many of us were concerned about that and were working with him on that. And yet, as the conversation progressed, we began to talk about all sorts of other things from world hunger on, you know. And I remember this friend who was so involved in death penalty work, saying that not everybody can do everything. In fact, nobody can do everything. We have to pick and choose what we're going, the particular issues that we're going to emphasize. Part of what's happened, I think, with the explosion of the many sources of information is that those of us who come at life from a caring perspective, or at least hope that we do, profess to do, because of our faith, are pulled in so many different directions that we find a time, we finally reach a time where we become numb. And it's not just the numbers about a particular problem. You know, you can say 12 or 18 kids getting killed in a school classroom is a horrendous tragedy, but 4,300 kids getting killed by guns in the year 2021 alone is simply a statistic. It's not just the problem with the numbers within a particular catastrophe or a issue. It's the avalanche of the problems. It's you know, as the moderator's statement listed, modern slavery, oppression, racism, misogyny, on and on. You know, we could add ongoing planetary destruction, school shootings, Ukraine, Taiwan, AIDS continues to hang on, world hunger, monkeypox now, congressional gridlock. The human psyche gets overwhelmed, and we lose our capacity to care about anything. So we have to decide what things we're going to focus on in order to be helpful about anything, helpful to anyone.
Thank you.
It's a wonderful privilege just to be with everybody today. The human organism is designed, hardwired to get us out of pain. If you take your hand and you hold that out over a stove, you will automatically recoil, right? You are hardwired, and that's not just true physically, it's true spiritually. So when we endure psychic pain or spiritual pain, we do all kinds of things to get ourselves out of pain. And so we will wall off all of those difficult feelings that are assaulting our spirits in order that we can get through the day. And I think that just as when somebody is constantly using their hands for work, they get calluses, or as my daughter, when she was dancing, hours and hours a week would get calluses. We do that because we need to build up some thickness so that we don't experience pain. And then we have to remind ourselves that if you don't feel pain, you have lost your humanity. And that's why it's so important in our spiritual traditions to be reminded constantly to actually feel pain, right? That we have to endeavor to feel what others feel. There is, right there in the book of Leviticus chapter 19, Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. That's not a platitude, it's a commandment. It's something that one must consciously choose to do on a daily basis. And I'm reminded of so many different stories in our tradition that remind us of when people get distracted. So we talk a lot about Abraham. But remember, he had a father named Terah, who, like Abraham, was living in Ur of the Chaldees and felt a call to go to the Promised Land, felt a call to journey to Canaan. And what happened? He got to the northern part of the Fertile Crescent and got distracted. It's comfortable here. There's plenty of merchandising to do. There's people coming and going, and you know what? We'll just stay in Haran. And it was Abraham in the next generation who had to pick up the mantle, even when he was 75 years old, right? When God said to him, Lech lecha, get yourself going, you have work to do. And later, when we read the Exodus narrative, right, one of the things that we note as the Israelites are wandering in the wilderness is that there comes a time when they realize you're not going to get there. It will not be your generation that will arrive at the Promised Land. And what's interesting is in the aftermath of that notification, the Israelites did not set up a permanent camp. They kept walking. They kept walking and never stopped, even though they knew they would not get there. And in the rabbinical tradition, there's a passage in what's called Pirkei Avot, or the wisdom of the fathers, that says, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmur. It is not up to you to complete all the work, because of all of those things, Tom, that you said, about how overwhelming some of the challenges that we face as a community, as a species might be. But then it says, Velo ata ben chorin lihibatel mimena. You are neither free to desist from it. And so we are obligated to humanize, to do the work necessary to continue to act with love and compassion. Brene Brown said that narrative is data with a soul. And as you said, Tom, that sometimes we get plagued by statistics, and we have to remember that there's a human behind every single one of those statistics.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. I tell you what, do we tire of caring? This is such a powerful quote. Don't get used to our pain. That just sticks out to me. And I think it's very true. I agree with both the opening statements. Sometimes good people just get tired of caring, but then persistent, enduring love and caring is the way good things get done. I think both of those, I agree with both of those. I think they're great, wonderful individuals. And I'll confine it to the context of congregations and churches and our places of worship. I think they're wonderful people who really spend a lot of time, years, providing care for individuals. And I think because they are human, as has been mentioned, it takes its toll. I think, and I don't know if people actually move on to something else, but I think we're very good at compartmentalizing people's pain. I think we are very good at, and like one of the questions asked, what's really going on when we move from concern about one thing to concern about another, then a third thing, then a fourth thing. And when I picture that, there's challenges going on, and as human beings, we can't navigate through all of those challenges simultaneously. So I think we compartmentalize, and I think it's very important that we kind of watch how others do a very good job at providing self-care. And I think we have to implement that. We always have to be about, caring for ourselves in the midst of caring for others. And I think when that is lacking, we see a lot of burnout. And that burnout could easily be viewed as just not caring. But for many people, it's just that they just don't have the strength and energy anymore. They're just about worn out. Tom Rainey has written a resource called 7 Reasons Pastors Burn Out, and he talks about the 24/7 mentality. The conflict, of course. It's not going the way that the pastor wants it to go, so, constantly fighting is burnout, and expectations, accepting the limitations of just not being able to care and provide the care for everyone. So with Ukraine, every now and then, and I have to be honest, if it's not right in front of me on the television, at first it was just, I'm praying for Ukraine. We're doing everything we can, but if it's not right in front of me now, I every now and then I'll just be thinking about what's going on with Ukraine, and we should not, we need to be a little bit more sensitive, I imagine.
Carl, you've got all the answers to how we put these different things together.
You're always struggling, so let me just share. No, I have always derived a lot of meaning from Reinhold Niebuhr and his discussion of the fall into sin in particular, and I'm summarizing through another theologian, Gil Meilander, and he said, the problem we humans have is we fall into either pride or sloth. That is, confronted by something, we tend to either want to control it and take responsibility to the exclusion of God, so that we become almost divine trying to solve the problem, and we lose our sense of who we are. And or we're so overwhelmed that we say, ain't my problem, ain't my issue, that's theirs, I'm backing out. And we either have a tendency to go back into either to become godlike or to fall back and say, I'm just a creature and I'm not responsible. And that, of course, what it is to be human is to both be responsible, but to have a sense of boundaries about our responsibility. And as we face unrelenting problems, which will always be with us, they always have been in different forms, I think we need to look at the resources of our faith traditions. And modern psychology offers, I think, reflections of those. But I think of one thing, and that is just the importance of taking care of oneself, the importance of rest, right? I know one of the things that I'm consumed with oftentimes is just a sense of guilt that I haven't done enough. I'm so thankful that God of forgiveness that says, guess what? You got a fresh start. Start the new day all over again. And that you can always have a sense of, again, this. And one other thing too, Jesus talks about giving a cup of cold water. Sometimes it isn't about changing the whole world. It's just about helping one person with one act of love, which can be empowering to them and to you. I guess I'll just leave it there. You probably all have other things to suggest.
So is it important that we feel guilty that we're not doing enough, or that Tony recognizes, this is off his radar now, and it gets a little bit worried about? Is it important that we have that? Is that important that we have that sense of inadequacy, that we're not doing what we should be doing, or does that actually get in the way?
Well, I think that there can be a balance, right? Mm-hmm. Certainly the Jewish people have taught the world a lot of important things about the power of guilt, and I think all of us have mothers, right, that could, have taught us that. Though my brother-in-law, who's Catholic, said that his mother probably had a better tool in her box about that. But in all seriousness, I think it is good for people to feel guilty, so long as it doesn't become a paralytic. If it becomes a catalyst to try to do a little bit more. Humility is a beautiful thing as long as it doesn't create a sense of self-defeat.
Yeah, I think one of the things that happens, though, that's very negative is when we become so overwhelmed that a part of our backing away ends up being blaming the victims. Because that's a feature of this being having this repeated pressure that we feel on ourselves, and so we start looking at the victims differently. well, we need to talk more about this.
Thank you. Let's have a break.
We hope you're enjoying today's program. If you'd like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the vision and history of the program, and we invite you to become a ministry partner, explore our Town Hall Estates healthcare facilities, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, we look forward to receiving your letters. You may write us at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. If you have a prayer request, please send it to prayerrequest@americanreligious.org. Thank you for writing and thank you for watching. Now, back to today's closing statements.
Yes, and we do thank you for watching and welcome back. And we are now going to move into the concluding comments.
I mentioned about self-care and preventing burnout. I love the story of Moses and Jethro in the scripture where Moses was providing care for so many individuals, and his father-in-law recognized that and basically told him, hey, the thing you're doing is not good. You're going to wear yourself out and you're going to wear the people out. And so his father-in-law gave him a plan to empower and to use and delegate a lot of the responsibilities that he had, and I think that's really important. And I also think that if one has not been touched directly by a lot of these atrocities, I think when we first hear it, it's absolutely devastating. We pray, we give funds, we some of us actually go to these places to help, in the fight. But then after a while, it does subside. The shooting in Buffalo, New York, that happened, many of us remember that. That was 3 minutes from my mom's house. My aunt lost a deacon in that shooting. My god siblings lost their first cousin, and I know the family of the police officer who was murdered there. That was 3 minutes. I've been to that place before, so that will always be in my mind because I have an affinity with that location, and I'm going to always be praying for those individuals as well. Because it was close to home. So I think it all depends on how close you are to these situations that would determine how consistent a person thinks about it and cares for it.
Thank you. I would simply ask our audience to raise two cautions. One is one I've already mentioned about blaming victims, and the other is that of allowing, when the numbers get too big, they become merely numbers and not human beings that are being helped. I think that we can. There are plenty of us to accomplish great things in so many areas to make real change in life. Not everything, not every bill in Congress has to be an omnibus bill that changes, makes 45 different radical changes in American history. But each of us and each effort can do good things if we keep the love and caring that we are taught in scriptures in the back of our minds. I'm reminded of I want to close with one quote from Mother Teresa, who said, "If I look at the mass, I will never act. If I look at the one, I will."
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
I like that.
It is good.
I looked up compassion fatigue in psychology today. These should be familiar, but I think we all need to practice them. Take time to recharge and refresh. Sabbath, find a good friend, develop relationships, take care of our bodies, diet, sleep, exercise, have hobbies for diversion, worship to prevent feelings of the loss of the soul. And then, not surprisingly, Psychology Today suggested even counseling. And my daughter's a reporter. She reports on some pretty difficult immigration issues. And someone asked her a question, how can you handle the human suffering? And she says, oh, I have a therapist. And it's really critical for her as a journalist to have a therapist. And I was very proud of her. And I thought it's probably good for all of us to have someone to talk to as we wrestle through these very difficult questions in our culture and society.
Yeah, I think that we often feel some sense of frustration that the problems that we confront are too big for us to feel like we make a difference. But I'm reminded in my favorite movie, The Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman famously says, change is pressure over time. And we have to, I think, as you say so well, make sure that we care for ourselves, but also not to lose the sense of responsibility. You know, Hillel famously said, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? But if I'm only for myself, what am I? And the reason why he was a genius is he didn't answer the question, right? He just asked us to hold both those questions so that we remind ourselves that as important as it is to take care of ourselves, we also have to do what's necessary to take care of those who are in dire straits.
Thank you very much. A great conversation today. I think a lot of good advice to us. First of all, a base. We need to look after ourselves. If we don't look after ourselves, we won't be able to look after anyone else. And I think some good advice from Carl there towards the end. And then that message, never weary of doing good. That is part of who we are, and compassion, looking out for people is so core to that. So, the Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy, and the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but also in reality. So now, friends, until next week, at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.